I always thought love was supposed to be simple. I was wrong. The first time I met her, it felt like destiny. Claire James. Brilliant. Magnetic. Impossible to ignore. Together, we were unstoppable, business partners, confidants, and, for a time, something more. Every deal we made, every pitch we conquered, felt like proof that we were destined to succeed. The world bent to our vision, or so I believed. Then he appeared. Michael Anders. Charming, slick, with a smile that could sell ice to an Eskimo. She chose him. Not me. Not once. Not in a whisper or a doubt. She left, heart and ambition in tow, and suddenly everything we'd built together felt like a castle of sand collapsing beneath a rising tide. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Not yet. I swallowed the betrayal and let it fester, feeding it quietly, carefully. Because if there's one thing I've learned about the world, it's this: revenge is an art. And I was ready to become the master. The first step was observation. Michael wasn't subtle. He flaunted his new relationship with Claire, posting photos on social media, attending every gala, every networking event, dripping in the illusion of perfection. Investors loved him. Partners feared him. And Claire, my Claire, smiled like a fool, believing she'd chosen wisely. I studied him like a predator. Every weakness, every misstep, every connection that could be exploited, I catalogued it. Michael was brilliant, but arrogant. Dangerous, but predictable. And arrogance is always a flaw that can be weaponized. Meanwhile, I retreated into the shadows, building my own network. Old clients, contacts Claire and Michael ignored, those who had ever doubted their decisions. I reached out to them. One by one, alliances formed, partnerships were whispered about behind closed doors, and I began to construct a parallel empire. Not just to compete, but to dominate. Months passed. I watched from the sidelines as they made one misstep after another. Michael's overconfidence blinded him. Claire's loyalty to him clouded her judgment. They didn't notice me growing stronger, faster, more ruthless. I became the whisper in every hallway, the shadow in every boardroom, the strategist no one saw coming until it was too late. Then came the first strike. A client they relied on heavily, a contract worth millions, began to waver. I didn't need to do much. Just a carefully timed phone call, a proposal they couldn't ignore, and suddenly the contract was mine. The first domino had fallen, and I watched it tumble. Claire noticed, of course. She tried to confront me at a networking event, her eyes wide with shock. "What are you doing?" she demanded. I smiled, calm, unshaken. What I should have done months ago. What you should have expected. Michael tried to intervene, but I didn't need to face him yet. Every move I made was a dance, and he was stepping to my rhythm without even knowing it. I let him think he was still leading. By the end of the year, whispers of my rise reached their ears. Rumors of a new company, a new leader, someone who was quietly siphoning power from under their feet. They didn't know it was me, not yet. And that advantage, ignorance, is the deadliest weapon of all. The next phase required precision. I infiltrated their investor meetings, subtly planting doubt about Michael's leadership. Every hesitation he showed, every missed detail, I amplified. Every strategic blunder they made, I exploited. By the time Claire realized the shift, I was already in the room she never thought I'd enter, the inner circle of power that dictated the company's future. Michael called me one night, frustrated, tense. "Who are you working with?" he demanded. "Who's feeding you information?" I laughed softly. "No one, Michael. I'm just better prepared." That night, I drafted the blueprint for the final move. Every piece was in place. The clients, the board, the investors, even some of their closest allies who had grown tired of Michael's arrogance. They didn't know I had them, but I did. Every handshake, every smile, every nod, they were mine. I didn't rush. Patience is power. And revenge, true, elegant revenge, is never rushed. Weeks later, the first public sign came. A press release highlighting a partnership I had secured, one that directly competed with Michael and Claire's latest venture. The media coverage was subtle at first, a mention here, a whisper there, but it snowballed quickly. Clients started questioning Michael's judgment. Investors began asking uncomfortable questions. Claire called me, desperate, pleading. "Stop this," she said, voice cracking. "This isn't you. Don't do this." I smiled gently. "Oh, Claire, this is exactly me. I've been waiting for the right moment, and the moment is now." By the time the final board vote arrived, the company's leadership had shifted without most people even realizing it. I had positioned myself as indispensable, the one person who could save the company from stagnation and mismanagement. Michael underestimated me. Claire had trusted him over me. And now, they were about to discover the cost of that choice. The meeting was tense. Every executive, every investor, every key stakeholder was present. Michael spoke first, trying to assert control, but the room's energy had shifted. When I stood, the room fell silent. I presented my plan, clear, decisive, visionary, and it was impossible to oppose. Every detail had been anticipated, every objection neutralized. By the end of the day, the vote was unanimous. I was installed as CEO, the one with the authority to shape the company's future. Michael and Claire sat across from me, stunned, defeated. Not a word could save them. I didn't need to gloat. The victory spoke for itself. Every deal I had orchestrated, every alliance I had formed, had culminated in this moment. And as I looked at them, the people who had betrayed me, underestimated me, and left me behind, I knew the truth. Power is sweeter when it comes wrapped in justice. I was in control now. Their company, their empire, their future, it was mine to direct. And the lesson was clear. Never choose someone over ambition, because ambition never forgets, and neither do I. The first day I walked into that glass-walled office as CEO, everything felt different. Not because the furniture had changed, it hadn't, or because the city skyline looked any brighter. It was a silence, the kind of silence that comes after a storm, heavy and tense, like the air is still deciding whether to breathe or choke you. Everyone looked at me with a mix of fear and awe. The whispers that had followed me for months were gone, replaced by wide-eyed stares and forced smiles. They didn't know whether to congratulate me or start polishing their resumes. I didn't care. My only focus was the two faces that mattered most, Michael and Claire. Michael sat in a corner of the boardroom, jaw clenched, fury burning behind his eyes. Claire stood near the window, pale, her fingers tightening around the edge of the glass table like it was the only thing keeping her upright. I almost smiled at the symmetry of it all. Months ago, I had stood in that same position, broken, humiliated, wondering how I could have been so blind. Now the tables had turned, and I was the one writing the script. I didn't fire them. Not yet. That would have been too easy, too merciful. Instead, I kept them close, because nothing destroys people like proximity to the power they lost. "Michael," I said casually, sliding into the chair at the head of the table, the chair he had once claimed like a throne. "Claire, I'm glad you're here. We've got work to do." He glared at me, fists tightening against his thighs. "You think this is over? You think you won?" I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the polished surface, and met his gaze. "Michael, this isn't a game. It never was. But if it makes you feel better, go ahead and pretend." Claire's voice trembled when she finally spoke. "Why are you doing this?" The question almost made me laugh. Why? As if betrayal needed a reason beyond itself. But I kept my face calm, my tone even. "Because you both taught me something valuable. Loyalty is a currency, and you spend it all on him. Now it's time to pay the price." They said nothing. What could they say? Every move I'd made was legal, every acquisition and alliance perfectly above board. I hadn't broken a single rule, just rewritten the game so they could never win. Over the next few weeks, I made sure to keep them exactly where I wanted them, dangling. Michael retained his title as COO, but with no real power. Every decision required my approval. Every deal he pitched, I tore apart with surgical precision, smiling as his confidence crumbled piece by piece. Claire stayed on as head of marketing, her idea, of course. She begged me for the position, claiming she wanted to prove her worth. I let her have it, because nothing is crueler than letting someone think they still matter when, in truth, they are just a pawn on your board. Behind the scenes, I set the real plan in motion. The company needed a new image, a new era, and I would be the face of it. I booked interviews with major business publications, appeared on panels, gave keynote speeches. Every headline had my name. Every photo captured my smile, polished and powerful, with Michael and Claire fading into the background like ghosts. The media loved the story, the underdog who rose from betrayal to brilliance, the visionary leader shaping the future. They didn't know the details, of course. They didn't need to. All they needed was a narrative I fed them, and I made sure it was irresistible. Michael hated it. I could see it in the way his jaw tightened every time another article dropped, another feature about me, another reminder that his empire was gone and I was the one wearing the crown. Claire, she was harder to read. Sometimes she looked at me with anger, other times with something softer. Regret, maybe? It didn't matter. Regret wouldn't save her. One night, after a particularly brutal board meeting where I'd shredded Michael's proposal in front of half the company, he stormed into my office without knocking. His face was red, his voice shaking with rage. "You think you're clever, don't you?" he spat. "You think you've beaten me." I leaned back in my chair, calm as ever. "Michael, I don't think. I know." He slammed his fist on my desk, leaning in so close I could smell the whiskey on his breath. "You'll regret this. All of it." I tilted my head, studying him like a specimen under glass. "Threats, Michael? Really? I expected better from you." His eyes flickered, and for a second, I saw something raw there. Fear. He straightened, adjusting his tie-like armor, and walked out without another word. That was the night I decided to accelerate the timeline. The endgame wasn't just about controlling them all. It was about annihilation. I started by dismantling Michael's network. Every ally he thought he had, I bought out or seduced to my side. Every investor loyal to him suddenly found better terms in my camp. Every favor he'd ever called in, I called it back twice as hard. Meanwhile, I kept Claire close. Not because I needed her, but because I wanted her to see every step, every twist of the knife. Some nights, when we stayed late working on campaigns, I caught her staring at me like she was trying to reconcile the person she once knew with the one sitting across from her. Sometimes, I wondered if she missed me. Sometimes, I hoped she did. Then came the gala, the company's biggest annual event, a night of champagne and applause, a celebration of success. Last year, Michael and Claire had walked in together, the golden couple of the business world. This year, they walked in apart, their smiles brittle, their hands empty. I made my entrance with the precision of a general stepping onto the battlefield. Cameras flashed, reporters swarmed, and every question, every compliment, every admiring glance was mine. I stood on that stage under the glittering lights, thanked the team, the partners, the investors, and then I dropped the bomb. Tonight, I announced, marks the beginning of a new era. Effective immediately, the company will undergo a complete rebrand under my leadership. A bold vision for the future, one that reflects strength, innovation, and integrity. The applause was deafening. Michael's face turned the color of ash. Claire looked like she might cry. And then, as if the universe decided to add its own poetic flourish, the press release hit every major outlet at that exact moment. Michael Anders resigns as COO effective immediately. Of course, he hadn't resigned willingly. I'd orchestrated it weeks ago, tying every one of his failures to his name, pushing the ball to the breaking point until they demanded his removal. He didn't even know it was happening until his phone buzzed with a notification. He left the gala without a word. Claire stayed, because she had no choice. And when it was over, when the lights dimmed and the cameras packed up, she found me in my office, standing by the window, the city glowing below like a constellation. "You didn't have to destroy him," she whispered, her voice trembling. I turned, meeting her eyes, and for the first time in months, I smiled, not the cold, sharp smile I'd worn like armor, but something softer. "Didn't I?" She stared at me, searching for something. Remorse, maybe, humanity, whatever it was. She didn't find it. "Claire," I said quietly, stepping closer. "You chose him. Over me. Over us. You knew what that meant. And now, so do I." She said nothing, just turned and walked away, her heels clicking like a metronome counting down the last second of a song that was never ours to begin with. The city never sleeps, but tonight it felt like it held its breath. From the top floor of my building, the skyline glittered like 1,000 promises, empty, fragile, and easy to break. I watched it through the glass, drink in hand, as the clock ticked toward midnight. The world outside was oblivious to what was about to happen. But inside these walls, everything was about to change. Again, Michael hadn't spoken to me in weeks. Not since the gala, not since his empire crumbled beneath his feet like sand. The press had eaten him alive. Once powerful COO ousted amid controversy, and every day, another headline drove the nail deeper. He'd tried fighting back, of course, leaking stories, calling old allies, threatening lawsuits. But I cut off every escape route, burned every bridge he might have crawled across. He was a ghost now, haunting the edges of a world that no longer wanted him. Claire, she was different. She stayed. Maybe because she had no choice. Maybe because she thought there was still a way to make things right. Or maybe, and this was the part that kept me up at night, because she still believed in me, in the version of me she once loved. That thought should have made me laugh. Instead, it made me wonder what would break first, her pride or her heart. When she walked into my office at night, I knew the answer was close. She didn't knock. She never did anymore. She just stepped inside, her heels clicking softly on the marble floor, her silhouette framed by the city lights. "You wanted to see me?" she asked, her voice careful, like every word might set off a landmine. I turned slowly, letting the silence stretch, because silence was a weapon if you knew how to wield it. "Yes," I said finally. "Sit." She perched on the edge of the leather chair, hands folded tightly in her lap. I studied her, the tension in her jaw, the flicker of defiance in her eyes. She was still fighting. Good. I liked them better when they fought. "I have an offer for you," I said, sliding a folder across the desk. She hesitated before taking it, her fingers brushing the edge like it might bite. When she opened it, her breath caught. "This is," her voice faltered, "Michael's company." "What's left of it?" I said smoothly. "After you both tried to destroy me, I couldn't let him keep anything. But I'm generous, Claire. I'm willing to give it back, under one condition." Her eyes lifted to mine, wide and uncertain. "What condition?" I leaned forward, elbows on the desk, my voice dropping to a whisper sharp enough to cut. "Leave him. Publicly. Completely. Align yourself with me, not just professionally, but personally. Stand beside me when I announce the merger next week. And when they ask why, tell them the truth, that you made the wrong choice, and now you've made the right one." She stared at me like she didn't recognize the person sitting across from her. Maybe she didn't. Maybe I didn't either. "You're asking me to humiliate him," she whispered. "No," I said softly, almost kindly. "I'm asking you to survive." The silence stretched again, thick and heavy. Finally, she closed the folder and stood, her chin trembling but high. "You become everything you used to hate." I smiled then, a real smile, slow and sharp. "No, Claire, I become everything you were too blind to see." She left without another word. I didn't stop her. I didn't have to, because I already knew what she would do. People like Claire always choose a winning side, and I'd made damn sure there was only one left. The next morning, the headlines hit like wildfire. Claire Harris breaks with Michael Anders, joins forces with new CEO in historic merger. Her photo was everywhere, smiling, polished, standing beside me at the press conference. Michael's name barely made the second paragraph. When the cameras flashed and the reporters shouted questions, I wrapped an arm lightly around her waist and let the world see what they wanted to see: power, unity, inevitability. Later, when the lights were gone and the champagne flowed, I stood by the window again, the city glittering below like a conquered kingdom. Claire was in the next room, laughing with investors, her voice light but a little too high, like someone who had made a deal with the devil and knew it. And Michael? He was done. Finished. I'd heard whispers that he'd sold his penthouse, that he was leaving the city, maybe even the country. It didn't matter. He was no longer a player on my board. As the night deepened, I lifted my glass to the skyline, the reflection of my own smile sharp against the glass. They thought betrayal had broken me. They thought love had weakened me. They were wrong, because in the end, I didn't just win back what they took. I took everything they thought they could never lose. And I wasn't done yet. Not even close.